This for me is when we talk about safety on set. We all have heard about the Alec Baldwin situation that happened, right? And so it sparked for us a need for us to look at that part of safety, ammunition. I'll tell you a story. When I put up the actual post on social media of ammunition, it said ammunition shooting on set. You know that one of the Metas shut me down, right? Because it just had ammunition shooting on set. I had to literally appeal and say, no, it's got nothing to do with violence. I'm not inciting violence. It's about filmmaking and camera props and and how to use that in terms and firearm props, and I had to appeal and get my page back. But that's what kind of happens. So I'm going to welcome onto our stage Bruce Winzel from Higher Arms. He is one of the global experts, and I mean global experts, on firearms on set. If you ever have an opportunity to have a tour through their premises in Wynberg, please do. They have got firearms from, I swear, I promise you, from the Roman era. They've got weapons from wherever. But he's able to give us this conversation about how to actually prepare for that. And we also have Ian Fourie, who is from Safeguard Africa. Now, Safeguard Africa is a new entity. Please take a seat, James. Is a new entity on the continent that is focused specifically on safety on film sets. So let's have a conversation and see how that goes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Oh, look, come on.
All righty. Bruce, how are you?
Good.
So glad
Strong like a mouse.
Strong like a mouse, and a mice.
A little mouse.
A tiny little one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a hippopotamus.
No, hippopotamus, I like that. Ian, how are you?
Well, thanks.
I'm good.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. I mean, we've been discussing safety, general safety. I mean, we've spoken about, gender safety on set, with new gender guidelines, with SWIFT, which is something that's actually been taken up globally now, worldwide. People are starting to look at how to, manage gender safety on sets and just general safety guidelines. But let me start with you. In terms of the new trends in safety, right? Why was it important for us to now have a company or organization that looks at safety, right? We all know what happened many years ago with the FMB Stadium when we had the Stampede. And from that, from an eventing point of view, then we had the Event Act. We started having the Event Act, which then made us look at event safety, such that we now have, and I'm sure maybe you've heard terms of JOCs, the Joint Operation Committees, and we had VOCs and venue organizing committees at various events or various projects that look like events. But now it has kind of grown into understanding that film sets also need safety. Talk to me about what that looks like on a film set, what safety looks like, but also in the past year or so, how has safety on set grown?
So I'm disappointed to announce that not a lot has changed in the last year, certainly in our local environment. But coming to where you started, safety exists and safety is an imperative globally. In South Africa, we're guided by the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and all businesses are guided by that. So every production house, if you ring-fence a production in its own entity, that entity needs to be accounted for as a business as well and as an employer. The event sector is important to us because it provides an interesting benchmark in terms of the nature of our work. We work in this gig economy where things are temporary. We may be establishing a base camp or working out of a production for 12 weeks, 10 weeks, and we come in, swan in for 3 months, and then leave again. And that sort of nature of the industry where everything's constantly moving doesn't detract from the need for safety and the legal responsibility. Okay. So in our sector, certainly safety is just as important. The conversation that we're having today and that we will have around the firearms is just one part of it. There's a duty of care to employees, and employees can be full-time, they can be freelancers, can be extras that you brought in for the day. If you've employed them for the day, the Act views them as your responsibility, and you have a duty of care to make sure that they're safe.
So, in terms of film safety, are there guidelines? Is there anything that's written down on paper that says this is how you must run your set in terms of safety?
So
there
I
protocols?
think that's the biggest problem, and I think it's the event sector's biggest win. The event sector has the act that you mentioned, SASRIA, which is the Sports and Recreation Act, and we in film production often step into the SASRIA ambit. If you bring a couple of hundred extras to set, you get to the point where you actually meet the legal definition of an event, and you need to tick those boxes. But for the most part, no. There's no set safety protocol.
Yeah.
The closest we came was during COVID,
Okay.
where SASFED drove a process, and everyone came together, and there was an agreed protocol, and that worked really well because it gave everyone a guideline. We hoped it was going to be the trigger, to write a broader document that covered safety, but it's not happened.
Okay.
So there is guidance. There's a guiding document, and that's the Occupational Health and Safety Act. That says that we have a duty to act.
So you speak of the numbers. At what point should we be aware that now we are falling into legislative environment? What is that number you speak about? Is it 50 people? Because I know from an eventing point of view, if you have over 50 people, you need to start really open up a file. Then you've got 500, and you must get a risk categorization. And what number is that? Because sets are anything from 5 people up until 800.
So you should be provisioning for safety irrespective of the number. The minute there are employees involved, you need to have some safety. On those smaller productions where you've got sort of 5, 10 people, you'd be running through a business, and that business should have safety built into it. So the Act actually says every company needs to have a safety file.
And what does that
So
safety look like? What are the safety elements? What are the things that is it about glass on the floor, or is it about having a security guard, or what are those key, if you were to pick 3 big elements that you have to look out for, regardless of the size of your set, what are those 3 big ones?
The 3 big ones are definitely, you're putting me on the spot. Appointments is number 1.
Okay.
The Act says that a managing director is responsible for everything that happens in their business.
Right.
And then, as the saying goes, it all flows downhill. So there are appointments that exist, and you can appoint people to manage the safety within your business.
Got it.
So I think getting those appointments right is really important.
Sure.
And if you own, in the context of our industry, if you are subbing in companies to do work for you, you need to do subcontractor vetting. So that would be my second point. Making sure that the people that you're working with are qualified,
100%.
making sure that they're experienced, making sure that they're adequately prepared and insured for what they're doing.
Right.
And that's how you manage your own risk.
Right.
And then the third one is a risk assessment.
Okay.
Risk assessments become topical lately with, the last couple of years, with the international funders who are coming in, and they want, Netflix typically asks for a risk register, which is the sort of starting point of a risk assessment.
Got it.
I know that Amazon's asked a couple of people for similar, and so they're starting to become topical. But the Act says as well that you need to have a risk assessment. You need to identify risks, assess them, work out what the real implication could be, and work out how you're going to mitigate that risk.
Sure.
And the other thing is you have to communicate that to everyone.
Okay.
So everyone, whatever environment you work in, you should be aware of the risks to you in that environment.
Got it. I mean, it's things like fire, and I'm going to come to you now, Bruce. There's elements in spirits with stunts, right? So you've got to have a safe environment around stunts. You've got to have, fire extinguishers. You've got to have a medic on site. You've got to have all of those elements that I think that, just for that scene, right? But I would, in my mind, encourage you to have a fire extinguisher on set anyway, just in case, a cigarette butt goes in a different direction and it's still lit and there's paper over here and then, something goes pear-shaped. So I think, Bruce, let me come to you. So, I genuinely am I'm scared of firearms, generally, yeah. And I shouldn't be, right? They're just metal, and there's bits and pieces of metal put together, but the implications of that metal can be very, very dangerous, right? The implications of the metal of that item, right, called a gun, and so there's so much, gun storyline. In everything we watch, right? So even if we're watching a normal kind of TV drama, or even young kiddie shows now, they have like a little, G.I. Joe kind of thing going on. So it's everywhere. Gun culture is everywhere. And in films, gun storyline is everywhere. So just talk us through the actual safety around the gun storyline,
Okay.
but also the reality of that safety and how safe is it?
Right. Guns in movies are potentially dangerous.
Okay.
And the first thing you do is make sure you have the person handling them knows what they're doing. So you get a registered company. In South Africa, we are forced to license with the police and that. Whereas in the US, you pick up a gun and go to a movie set. There's no legislation. So I have to have accreditation. I have to have competency. So the average gun owner in South Africa who has a pistol and a shotgun has 2 competencies. I have 7.
Okay.
So
What is
that's
this?
by law in this country.
Okay.
Without those competencies, I can't apply for my accreditation, which licenses me for film, theatrical, and television.
Right.
So if we look at everybody talks about the Alec Baldwin incident. You
Yeah.
hire someone who is not qualified. You allow live ammunition on a set at lunchtime, you can shoot the same guns. No. So many rules were broken.
Right.
So many rules were broken. So if we take, I was pulling some information, since 1980. So if we take from 1980 to today, we have had 4 people killed with guns.
Hold on. Since 1980.
Since 1980
Is this-
and earlier,
Where is it? On the continent or worldwide?
worldwide. Worldwide. Okay, so we have the earliest one is John Eric Helson.
Okay.
Again, armourer, they didn't have a proper armourer, picked up a blank gun, loaded, put it to his temple and pulled the trigger because this is taking too long. He was pretending, and he died. The next one was Brandon Lee. There was no armourer because they were doing pickup shots.
Okay.
They were doing stunt work.
All right.
And the other one is a stuntman was killed in Australia. Again, they were using a shotgun. So of the 4 accidents, 3 were with handguns,
All right.
and all 3 were with revolvers,
Okay.
not pistols. And I can show you test results of where if you take a blank pistol,
Yeah.
put a live round in it, fire it, the bullet doesn't exit. Not on properly regulated guns. So it destroys the gun completely. And I've seen one that way.
Yeah.
So revolvers are slightly more dangerous. But in that time, let's take 1980 to 1989. Worldwide, there were 150 life-changing injuries,
What?
108 deaths, of which 1 was a firearm.
Okay.
So we have
All right.
150 life-changing injuries, and 108 deaths, right? Let's take them out. Of the 108, 62 were on one set where people were trapped inside a fire. The rest were stunts, special effects, various accidents, booms.
Sure.
But in that time, of the 150 life-changing injuries and 108 deaths, 1 was again a firearm, and that was the latest one.
Which was the one that he got acquitted
So
for? Okay.
they are potentially dangerous, but they don't need to be. Now we're having producers that are so terrified to fire a gun in any way, shape, or form. It's
Yeah.
not necessary. We can still make good action movies or even love stories where a gun is involved if it's done in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
And just load the gun quickly. No, you don't do that.
Uh-huh. There's processes involved.
I, in my experience, have had one instance where it could have been potentially dangerous, but it was prevented, and that was the same scenario with Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
A bullet came out of a dummy round into the barrel. So when you open the cylinder on a revolver, you see it's empty, but there's a bullet stuck in the barrel. A blank has more powder than a live round.
Okay.
And it was dark, and I was using a torch to make sure it was safe, and the the first was shouting at me, hurry up, hurry up. I said, just let me check it. And after the third take, I went to him and said, is this gun safe? He said, yes, it is. Let's carry on. I said, no, it's not. Somebody's going to die. A bullet had come out of the casement, stuck in the barrel. But because I was checking for it,
Yeah.
it was prevented. So, yes, guns are potentially dangerous in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
Some of the things we do is when they say, right, we want all these extras to shoot guns and stuntmen, say, well, when are we going to train them? No, we'll do it on the day. I'm saying, well, no.
Yeah.
Rather train the people. Don't ever point directly at people. We've proven it. If I want to shoot somebody over there, I can point the gun there. Person can be there. I'm not pointing at the person. Camera from the side, and you can get away with it.
Sure.
There are ways of doing it. You asked about children and animals. You use reduced load, so there's not as much flash. You can enhance it today with CGI.
Yeah.
Children and animals. Animals don't like sudden noises. There's
They
ways
don't.
of creating a smoke cue, and you actually you shoot talcum powder out.
Okay.
No one's ever been shot and killed by talcum powder. It comes a little puff of smoke, and you can add flash and all that. So it can be done. It also gives the actors something to work off. When the gun fires, they can act properly. But these guys, you see them pretending to fire. It
doesn't do.
doesn't work.
So you speak about training, right? What length of training do you propose? Is it a 2-day training program? What's involved? Is it a 6-week training program?
No,
What's
not 6
involved?
weeks.
What does it look like?
You're not making them into armorers in 6 weeks or gunsmiths. What you do is you train the person for about 2 hours and do a refresher a couple of days. So you can do it over 3 days, 2-hour sessions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you take someone and give them 8 hours of intense training, within the first hour and a half, it stops absorbing.
Okay.
They can take a piece of plastic and pretend and practice. So it reaffirms it.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not, you can do a couple of hours, a couple of days later. So if they're doing drill, and we've done it on period pieces where they have to shoot muskets and all that. And what I do is I start with 200, and very quickly you can say, you that way, and get rid of those that aren't listening or trying to be clever. So you can train them, and then when they've done 2 hours of that, they go and do drill. They go and do how to pretend to die properly. There's different training. You don't just intensely train someone for 6 hours.
Okay.
Because they're not absorbing it.
100%.
So 2 hours a day, between 2 hours a day and a bit of repetitive training, and a day or two later.
Okay. Are the props that you use actual real guns? Or are they designed differently? And other props like badges and stuff. I mean, you showed me the classic rose on on the police emblem, which was really funny for me. I thought there's a rose in the emblem if you look closely, but it's not, because our emblem has got a particular flower, so we use a rose. But are they actually real guns, and what do you do to it?
Okay, the first thing you do is you start with a real gun.
Okay.
They make airsofts, but the airsofts only produce a very small percentage of the total guns used in the world. Because you come to me and say, we want to do the Zulu War of 1879 or 1881, or hang on a second, they don't have airsoft for that. So you use real guns, and there's 3 levels that we use. We use a practical, which is regulated and set up to fire blanks.
Sure.
There's deactivated. We call them a deac, which is a real gun deactivated. It will never fire again in its life. It's deactivated. And then you have rubber. So you have close to camera, the working one that the guy can cycle the bolt and all that.
Right.
If you have 50 people on a movie set, and they're all soldiers, they have to be armed, we will put something like 15 to 18 practicals. The rest will be deacs, and then rubbers in the background.
And
you don't have to have all 50 people, because the most stuff is watched today on a small screen. But even on a big screen, if the 15 guns that are firing blanks are in the hands of trained extras or trained stuntmen, the rest in the background, you can't see that the guy there because he's out of focus. So it's not necessary to say we've got 100 soldiers or 50 soldiers. You go 15 to 20% firing gun, more than enough. So that's another way that it makes it more controllable. Okay, and if you start to get to 30 guns, you have more than one armorer, you have 3 armorers, and you divide them and train them.
And the design of the actual bullets themselves, I mean, our bullets, as in normal situations, they are loaded with gunpowder.
Yeah.
What are these bullets actually loaded with, so we are aware?
Okay.
Oh, he's got samples.
I thought I would bring you something to show you
Oh,
something.
God. Alrighty.
So we were discussing this just before this, okay?
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to... Okay. There's the same bullet. They are all dummies. The one
Okay.
is a real one and one is a blank. Now, you see how easy it is to tell the difference?
No.
Look at the head. Okay. If you look, that's got a projectile. That's all part of one piece. It's got a crimp.
So which one is the real one?
That's the real one.
Okay.
So, and even in the dark, you can feel the difference. That's the real one, and that's the blank.
And so we
Even
would
the-
never see this on screen, right?
So it's very easy to see the difference. Now,
okay.
you can see this is copper, this is brass. This is one piece. That's a blank, that's a live one.
Okay. And I've counted them, hey? Tim.
Now, the accident in Australia involved a shotgun.
Okay.
Because the shotgun is a very big cartridge, people put a bit of powder in and they put a plastic wad in, just a plastic disc,
Okay.
and they glue it in. That comes out at quite a velocity. We don't do that.
So what do we do?
We do this. We use an adapter. And your
Okay.
adapter, for a close shot, you use a small blank in there, and you fire that and you get some smoke and flame out. If it's a long shot, the other blank goes in. These are adapters. So you never use shotgun cartridges. It's using a sub-caliber, much smaller, less flame, less smoke, less particles.
Okay.
So it is doable. Modern blanks, if you look at the crimp on a modern blank, like that, the one there,
Yeah.
you'll see that that's crimped, it's star crimped.
Yeah, I can see that.
In the old days, they used to make a blank like that with a cardboard disc. Those are no longer made.
Why is it ineffective? What's that about?
The cardboard blank, that piece could stay together and fly out and injure somebody.
Oh, gotcha. So,
So
then,
modern ones have a crimp. So when it fires, that just opens up and lets the flash out.
so what is inside now?
Powder, nothing else.
Just like talcum powder or
No,
a
that
grey
one's
powder?
got gunpowder which burns, okay. And they load it in different loads. So if you've got a camera over there, you can fire quite a big blank.
Right.
The cameras come close, you use a sub-caliber, which is a much smaller blank.
Okay.
The closer people and objects are to the blank,
Yeah.
the different loading. So it's more complicated than some people realize. But that's how you keep it safe, by using the correct blank for the correct application.
100%. Oh gosh.
So
Okay.
it's relatively simple even in the dark. You can blindfold
You
me
can
and I will tell you
I
the
can
difference just by
feel-
feeling.
you're right.
The armor, you feel the end of it,
Yeah.
one with serrations in, that's a blank.
That's the blank. So
And there's no necessity to have live ammunition. That is a dummy. That's to show the actor loading the magazine. You don't ever have to have live ammunition on set.
got it.
Never.
So essentially that's for the close up to what so this does end up on set sometimes. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
real it does end up simply for that close up.
Yeah.
That's what and then they put it in and then
Have a
what
look at
then
that
happens?
one. They're the dummy 9mm.
Yeah.
No, that's the
This one?
blank.
Yeah.
The other one's got a hole in it.
Okay.
You see the other one, the dummy round has
Oh,
a
got
hole
it.
in it.
In the top.
And the hole in it is to let the powder out.
Okay. So I mean, Ian, you've been around this as well, right? And I mean, you're obviously aware of the differences in the actual ammunition itself, right?
So safety officers are generalists. So we would sit with an armorer on set and understand what they've got with them.
Okay.
But just listening to Bruce now, I wanted to come back to the risk assessment and
Yeah.
say, so we've got a practical, a real firearm on set, okay, and we've got we're going to be shooting at people. We've got there a risk and a hazard.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we mitigate. So
Okay.
step number one, you got someone who knows what he's doing and knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
So your answer was the same as mine the first time I was given a dummy and a live round. You said, very confidently someone said to me, "See the difference?" And I said, "No, don't
Yeah.
see the difference." But that's the point: is you've got someone who knows what they're doing, and They know what they're looking at and what they're dealing with. Before that, you've got a check and a balance where no live ammunition is allowed on set.
Right.
And we'll come to that, but because that's unfortunately happening a lot at the moment.
Sure.
But we have no live ammunition on set. So now, mitigating that risk, we know we've got a specialist who knows what he's doing. He's got the right equipment with him.
Okay.
He's got experience and he's done this before.
Yeah.
We've got rules, things like locking out live ammunition. So we know we're not going to accidentally have live ammunition on set with us. And so it goes. That's how we build the risk profile for it.
Okay.
So the Baldwin thing, which sort of was the catalyst for this conversation, is no less important because the incidence of gun death are low. It's massively important because it highlights to us how this perfect storm of events, it was essentially a black swan event.
Yeah.
Everything we've just discussed happened there. They had someone who was poorly trained,
Right.
little experience, no formal qualification,
Okay.
shouldn't have been there. She had live rounds on set, and we know from the court documents that they were mucking around at lunchtime, I think shooting Coke cans or something.
Jesus.
And then, and this is the next thing that I want to introduce chain of custody, was they had a couple of people sort of involved and passing firearms around and passing things around. And so by the time it got to Alec Baldwin, who knows what he was holding? Least of all him, because again, he's a performer. It's not his job to be a
Not his
weapons
job to check the
specialist.
safety.
Yeah. Do you want
It's the armourer's job. The gun was not handed to Alec Baldwin by the armourer or supposed armourer.
Okay.
One of the ADs walked past and said, I need this on set, and walked in and handed it in. So when you get to the actor, say the gun is empty or it's loaded with dummy rounds or whatever, the armourer's job is to do that. Go to the actor and say, it's not loaded, guns are going in. None of that was done. So every time you break a rule, eventually the chain just breaks and somebody gets hurt. Well, in this case, somebody was killed. So
Yeah.
live ammunition on set, just a complete no-no. I've had problems where producers have got friends in the police force and they get policemen there. Say, please unload your guns. I'm a policeman, I'm not unloading my gun. Well, then you're responsible for safety. You can't have
Okay.
somebody, when a policeman is on a movie set, unless he's investigating, if he's going in front of camera, he's an actor, he
Okay.
must unload his gun.
Okay.
And eventually they do, but we say, so you're responsible for safety. No, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. You got loaded guns.
So I was going to actually come to that. So we do, as part of, I think, the extras, all right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do have real police officers on
Yes.
set, right? You've seen them. So we take those guns, do we
Unload them.
unload them, and they keep their own gun because it's their gun, their serial
they put
number
it in a separate
is to them.
pocket.
It's
The
them.
gun's unloaded.
Okay.
We make them unload the guns. Sometimes some of them just give us the bullets in a little bag.
And then
they have their guns as props. I cannot
Okay.
take a police officer's firearm.
No, you
And
can't.
I can't take his ammunition either. So I take it, I put it in a bag, put it in a separate pocket.
Okay.
So then when he walks onto set, he's got bullets in his pocket, which I can't remove.
But we've got the dummy bullets in the actual gun
Yeah.
as well.
We only put the dummy bullets as an in when required.
Okay.
But when they're doing with dummy bullets, we never use police guns. The police gun stays in the holster.
Oh, got you. So the gun that they actually, so they don't. Okay,
The
okay,
close-up, the
okay,
guns for
okay.
close-up, and that is a controlled gun that comes from a movie weapons rental company. If you start using, our guns are modified as blank firers. All other armory companies have guns modified as blank firers.
Okay.
So you never use a policeman's gun close up on camera or something. It doesn't get handled. It stays in his holster,
Right.
arresting the guy, putting handcuffs on. So if they do it on the take, they say, no, we don't want an armory, we've got policemen there. And the policeman forgets to unload his gun. All your insurance is null and void.
So, okay.
That's the first thing that an insurance company's sort of job to do is to say, why was there an accident? How could it have been? Well, who was the armorer? Oh, we didn't have one. Oh, so you had a gun accident and you didn't have an armorer. Why were guns being used without an armorer?
So,
And they can bail on their payment.
wow. Okay. So,
It's people don't realize that how they risk their insurance.
by not being prepared for that.
And one of our most recent incidents, they didn't want real guns. It's too dangerous. Okay. What do you want? We want airsoft. Okay, airsoft, you know what an airsoft gun is? It's a toy gun that shoots. Oh, we'll use one of those. So we supply them in airsoft. There's no legislation. You can buy them or rent them. But we don't supply the gas. We then got phoned and said, the art director has just been flown out in a helicopter with a serious eye injury. So how did that happen? It's your gun. I said, yeah, my gun. And then I gave you a non-working gun. What did you do? Oh, we went and bought gas, filled the gun, and he shot himself in the eye.
Ouch.
There was no arm. So he's sitting at his desk playing with them and shot him and destroyed his eye. There was no armor. And that's an airsoft, which is supposed to be safer.
So,
So, and I had the same incident last week. Someone said, we want to go. I said, I'm not supplying you gas. We don't supply gas. If you want gas, go and buy it and do it yourself. And if there's an injury, you don't have insurance. Why?
because of these
You know
things.
why.
So, I mean, how do you prepare your medics for such things? I mean, is it a normal accident at that point? What happens at that kind of juncture? Do they understand gun safety? Is there a specific protocol from a medic point of view to deal with gun safety?
Well, the medics on set, the medics on set can deal with gunshots in the normal line of their business. I mean,
Right.
it's sort of what we do, and certainly in South Africa, if there's something I've treated a lot, it's a gunshot. So the game plan really is to get to the point that the medic never needs to. I mean, that's
course.
really what we need to do.
Sure.
Yeah, the safety planning that we were doing, and the best way to do it
Yeah.
is to make sure that you're aware of who's carrying firearms on any given day. Because the other real big problem that we've got at the moment is security.
Right, okay.
So certainly locally, there's a mix of licensed and unlicensed security operators
Sure.
working on film sets in and around Gauteng, and a lot of those guys are carrying weapons.
Okay.
Some of them declare it, and we're aware of it, and they are not allowed onto to set at all. In fact, they have to stay outside on the perimeter.
Okay.
My contention is, if your argument is that for security reasons you ought to be armed to protect everyone working, that's fine. Be on the perimeter, be outside the property,
100%.
and they're not allowed to come inside. The gold standard there would be something like, if they actually came inside to come to lunch or go to the toilet or whatever, someone else would meet them at the gate, relieve them of their firearm, and stand with the firearm itself would stay outside all the
Okay,
time.
gotcha.
We, not long ago, had a chap discharge a weapon unintentionally. It was an accidental discharge while he was in a Portaloo.
Okay.
Um,
In the
and
loo.
blew up one of those VIP trailers with a firearm that we discovered was illegal and shouldn't have, apart from the fact that
Toilet.
it shouldn't have been there, it was illegal. So it's the checks and balances that are so critical.
Sure.
Because what protects us from these four incidents, the handgun incidents, the shotgun incident that you're mentioning, Bruce, what protects us is good checks and balances and good systems in the background.
Right. If there's any questions, please open up your hand, and we're happy to take questions from the floor at any time. We just have a microphone roving around. Let's talk about how to handle the child, right? So, I mean, child actors are trained really well. You've got the minder, you've got the mother maybe around, you've got, the casting director maybe there. How do we deal with children? All right, even if they are dummies, and
Yeah.
how do we manage our children around it?
It's funny enough, children listen better than a lot of actors. The interpreter, machine gun preacher. So we've trained a lot of
Okay.
children. Their enthusiasm. I went to Mozambique to do the interpreter, the shooting scene, and they gave them to me for a couple of hours a day. And we took them to the range, trained them, whether it's like riding a bicycle, and it worked very well. So it can be done safely. You reduce loads. The biggest danger with blank firing guns is you hand the guns out, you watch 2 seconds, they're pointing at each other, and you say, right,
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Right. That's why you start with toy guns and they pretend. You never point ever. Okay. And you can train them. So it's not difficult to train them. I've actually found it relatively easy because they're enthusiastic, they're learning something. And don't overdo it. Don't keep them for 6 hours in one place. So the interpreter was fun. We did a lot on Hotel Rwanda, various movies. We've trained actors with child actors. Then you start them with a dummy foam gun. And you slowly bring them up. You go dummy, deactivated, then to live if they have to fire, because they're like Machine Gun Preacher. There were kids shooting in that.
So kids are child actors are actors, right? So they have to be given eventually the real kind of gun, which is modified internally for whatever reason. So they don't carry fake guns. Children as well.
They can carry a gun if the script requires it, but then they get specialized training. Okay, you see in movies whether it's riding a horse, driving a car, firing a blank gun. They never fire live guns. They will never fire something that has a projectile. There's no need. Even in the training, there's no necessity for that. So you take kids, you train them as horse riders, scuba divers, all these different things to make it's part of the script.
Right.
By and large, a lot of times kids don't fire a gun. Sometimes it's one shot or two shot, but it's very doable in a controlled environment.
Right. Okay.
And before you rehearse the scene
Sure.
off camera. You don't take the kid, give them a gun and say, shoot a shot in that direction.
All right.
Then that's when accidents happen. So you take them, give them some training, they get confident with it. And it's under control. One of the things that, one of my bugbears is often they'll say, right, special effects go hot. Hang on, one more rehearsal. No. When you load the guns, there's no rehearsal. And they start rehearsing and say, no, guys, we don't rehearse with loaded weapons. It just cuts the risk. There's ways of cutting the risk.
Yeah.
So you got it, you blocked it, you've done everything, safety officer's happy, the armor's happy, camera's happy, grips are happy, then you go. No, one more rehearsal, but you've called for guns to be loaded. Shoot the rehearsal.
Okay.
So you don't rehearse with, do 3 rehearsals with loaded guns. No, we'll unload the guns. No, we haven't got time. Yes, you have got time. You either unload the guns or don't rehearse. Shoot the rehearsal. Oh, okay, it's not full. So that's often what happens, is they shoot the rehearsal.
Yeah, because, we're always chasing light. We're always chasing, trying to get the production done. Practically, especially for the young, those coming in to now actually just direct it and kind of managing the production schedule, how long does it take to load, unload? What, is it 10 minutes? Is it what?
No.
So then they have to factor, how long does that take?
If it's an assault rifle, let's take an AK. Everybody knows the AK. You've got an unloaded AK doing it. I can walk on, clip a loaded magazine. I don't use the same. I don't sit and put bullets into that magazine. We have loaded ones in pouches. So it could take less than a minute and a half. The big trick is to do the rehearsal properly and know where his arc of fire is. So in other words, he's going to shoot up the building. Don't point at people. So the rehearsals you do repeatedly, that takes longer than the armor loading the weapon. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 minutes if you've got 20 people to load.
It's
not a massive delay, no.
Okay, so essentially in kind of the risk profiling is maybe do we plan the time in? Is it something that
all comes down to the planning and to time allocation and time. And you're saying we're chasing light. We're just chasing time all the time at the moment.
Yeah.
Everyone's chasing time. We're chasing it on budgets. We've got shoot days that are too busy. We're scheduling poorly, and I know that it comes from high up. I'm not suggesting it's isolated, but it all comes down to that, because if you listen to what Bruce is saying, it all comes down to competency. And when you get a gun license, the first thing you do is a competency. You want to make sure that you're competent. Now, performers are performers. That's what they should be doing.
Sure.
But they need to be competent in what they're doing on a performance level, but also on the technical level.
Right.
I'm busy teaching my son how to drive, my firstborn. It's why I'm grey this year. And the time when he is most dangerous in the car is when he's indecisive. And that indecision is because he's not competent yet and because he doesn't have experience. So we need to actually just say, if we're going to be shooting, if we're going to have guns, we need to allocate some time for the armorer to spend some time with cost working on this. What are we going through? What are we doing? There's external stuff. There's training available to performers that they can go and do. That Jack Devnarain runs a really cool course, and I like the course because the focus is on the performance. He's not pretending to be an anything. He's not pretending to make you a weapons expert or a SWAT member or anything like that. He's teaching you how to perform with the weapon, but with that comfort and competency
Sure.
comes safety.
Sure.
So the time allocation is the big thing. Often, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, often, we need to run through this with the performer, make sure they understand
Exactly.
what they're doing. That's as much safety as it is artistic,
Okay.
But
Got it.
that time is a big problem for us.
yeah, not just safety. Okay, so, and I've had artists who've gone for special forces training.
Uh-huh. My mom can
They
shoot a
come
gun, she's a
and you
soldier.
say, that's wrong. No, I was taught this by the special forces. Say,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
So have a look at this face here.
I can't see your
Now,
eyes.
that's fine if it's Bruce Vansel's face. Bruce Vansel's
Yeah.
face is 10 Rand a day. Mel Gibson's face is 20 million Rand a day. So Mel Gibson shoots a pistol with head up. That's the money shot. The real way you shoot is you have your head down. So you'll see actors, the
Yeah.
successful ones, they have their head up so you're getting the money shot. But if he was trained by special forces now, he says, well, you know that we're seeing a 450 Rand gun and not the face that cost the production 20 million Rand. Oh. So maybe you should forget the special forces stuff. So there is what is real and what is
Right.
movies. I remember we were talking about it earlier on a job. I said to the artist, come out and pull the trigger and fire 5 or 6 rounds, 5 or 6 rounds, 5 or 6
Yeah,
rounds.
yeah.
Okay, brrr, brrr. And the guy said, listen, Sonny, I was a mercenary in the Congo, so I don't care. This is a movie. In those days, with camera,
Yeah.
in those days, camera runs at 28 frames a second.
Okay.
A lot of guns fire at 28 frames a second, 28 blanks per second.
Jeez.
So now what happens is that we had it on a particular movie where 2 guys came in, each emptied 35 shots out of machine guns.
Yeah.
The one on the left had flames out of it this long, the other one never had one flame. Because with the old film cameras, not so much today, the shutter was closed when the gun flashed. And it captured 2 guys fired the same amount, both when you watched it, looked like flames like this. One had flash, one didn't. That's why in the real world, the military, they go brr, brr, 2 shots. But you can sync with the camera and not pick up any muzzle flash.
Got it.
So that's the difference between reality and movies. The whole idea is to make the artist look really super confident. And somebody say, oh, but his head's too high. Well, yeah, he's a good shot.
Yeah. Okay. So
there's
I
a
get it.
difference
So there is
between real military training and you've got to adapt it for movies, for the look.
Yeah. So you're
Because
saying
if
so
the
you've done
artist
here,
spends
okay.
all the time with a gun behind his face,
Then you haven't got the
you're
haven't
paying
got the
him
Brad
much
Pitt.
more than you're paying for the gun.
100%.
The gun is not the main feature.
It's the person
part
behind
of
it. All right. So talk to me about animals, right? How do we deal with animals around ammunition? And again, I think it's also about the table of ammunition. What do we do? Do we put hazard tape around it? What does that space look like? Is it over there? There's the guns, guys. Don't touch it. But how do we deal with both issues in terms of placement, but also with animals? What do we do?
Life is wild, wild at heart. Lots of animals, hunting rifles, shots fired. There are ways of doing it. And one of the ways we use a piston system and talcum powder. So the smoke coming out the end of the barrel is talcum powder.
But the sound?
That's
And-
it. You can
Okay.
use air, and there's ways of bringing the sound down. You don't have to have the loudest. Some animals are trained. Some of the police horses, and there was a guy the other day collecting blanks, and they do skillet arms where they gallop around on horses, and they chop watermelons with swords, and then they've got balloons on the jump. As you go over the jump, you've got to shoot this thing with a blank.
Okay.
And the horses are trained for that. So if you have that kind of
Okay.
horse,
Okay.
yes, it's fine. But if you don't, you err on the side of caution.
Sure.
Because you scare a horse, it runs through the crew, people get hurt and say, well, it's the gun's fault. No, it was the blank was too. So there's, say, no, we don't want to fire. And there's times where you have to do it. You say that the thing is too nervous. I don't like firing blanks in a line enclosure. They get nervous and skittish.
Right,
So
right.
there's ways of doing it safely. But don't make sudden noises. It scares animals. And it's also cruel. It's not necessary.
Sure.
You know.
It isn't.
And people, if it's a dog,
Yeah.
if I take out a gun and my dogs are around me, they're hunting dogs. As soon as I take it, they're looking up, they're barking. And yesterday, I went to the clay pigeon range, shot 60 or 70 rounds, my dog's walking next to me.
Because I mean, they use
They're
like,
trained for it.
it's like a
They are trained
Guy
for
Fawkes. Yeah.
And if you encounter dogs that aren't trained, you don't shoot.
Got it.
And then you get the animal sort of wrangler coming in and saying, well, how loud is it? No, that's fine. So I would work with the animal wrangler for the animal safety. It's not just somebody making one arbitrary decision. We've got this animal here, we want to do this. Then talk to the wrangler and say, is that thing trained for gunshots? No. Okay, then we're not going to fire. So you work with the people
Okay.
around, And some kids, I've dealt with a lot of kids, some kids are just so nervous, don't shoot. It doesn't work with them. But others, oh, please, can I?
Sounds like, yeah.
And the time to do that is not in front of a whole crew, hand them a gun and say, you're going to now shoot.
To put them aside.
Put them aside, come
Have a
to
bit of-
the training area at the workshop,
Right.
and they love it. And you say,
Yeah.
well, change that gun because it hasn't been established yet. Change it for one that's quieter before
Sure.
it gets established.
And then so in terms of the
This is on the pre-planning.
pre-planning, so I was going to get to that. In terms of the location planning, right? How do we plan for that for that area of armory? I mean, in a different eventing, you have like that 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter. Is there a meterage around the table? What do we do?
Before you have meetings and complicated time wasters, give the armory company the script. But we've
Okay.
had it where somebody says, we need an armorer tomorrow and a gun. So what are they doing? Oh, shooting a gun. I need a bit more. Okay, so you get there the next day. And somebody says, right, he's going to shoot this person at this range. No, he's not. Well, that's in the script. I haven't seen the script.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the script.
Can I get a microphone, please?
So
Yeah.
it makes it very difficult that you walk onto a set and you go, but hang on a second, there's no chance.
Yeah.
There's no chance of
It doesn't matter. Leave it.
being surprised.
Yeah.
And it happens on television work.
Yeah.
It happens on television work where the armorer is surprised.
Mm.
Because you go there, they just said, oh, we want an armorer tomorrow with a revolver. No specialist loads or anything like that.
Okay, so-
I mean, we used to import a special blank
Yeah.
called a suicide blank.
Mm-hmm.
You cock the gun, put it against your head and pull the trigger.
I just had this
But
like
it's
gun on my
designed
brain.
for that. It'll cycle, nothing comes out the front, and it'll kick it out, and it goes like that. It's designed around that.
I mean,
So
I've
It's made for that. Now, they cost about 280 Rand a blank. We've just recently made locally made ones, which do exactly the same. It's impossible, a mechanical impossibility for anything to come out the front, because the barrel is specially made and completely blocked. So you get a little puff out the breech. So you can put it there.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I'm not an actor, guys. I don't
But
think I
when
could
you
do
have a
that.
suicide shot in the movie, how do you do it?
All right, is there any questions
It
out
has
here?
to be done. It's a special effect.
There's a question over there.
So we've done others where we actually use a gun with
Yeah.
a battery and a light bulb, a flash bulb. Put in your mouth and the cheeks glow. The cheeks glow. The cheeks glow,
Yeah.
and it looks like he's shot inside the mouth. But it's a light bulb.
It's a light
torch
bulb.
So you
Interesting.
can do it safely with various ways, if we know about it. But if we are not privy to the script and we arrive there and we're trying to get it the best way, say, no, you're not shooting somebody at this range with a blank. You need
100%.
special blanks there. It was never ordered.
Okay. Well, let's just catch a question while we're trying to fix
Yeah.
you. Please just say your name and your question. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Valente from Trike Films, and it's such an honor for us to be here. One question. We're talking all about firearms and stuff like that. What about blades? Can you just
Blades.
enlighten us about blades, please?
Blades and blades, knives, swords.
Yeah.
Thank you. Especially
Okay, not that difficult. Okay, and the reason I say that is this TV series Black Sails, we have different types of blades which are made of rubber or aluminium. The aluminium blades are unsharpened. And most sword fighting blades and retractables are controlled by stuntmen. But you don't use, the only time you have a real blade is when the camera is close up on it. But the rest of the time, it's got the same handle, but an aluminium blade, which is very, very blunt. So if you watch where blades are being used, one of the things we also issue is if somebody's going to get stabbed, even with a retractable, we have a system of chainmail that goes underneath that the blade cannot penetrate, even though it's a retractable. Retractable can go wrong, so have chainmail, which is what the knights of the old days used. So you can use chainmail inside the shirt
Okay.
as a safety feature.
Got it.
Whereas I can take a retractable there, but if it fails, I'm stabbing him. But if somebody's stabbing me in the stomach, I want chainmail
Okay.
as a safety feature. So yes, it is controllable.
Okay. Any more questions at the moment? There's a question over there. Switch on the microphone, please. All right, whilst that's happening there, I think for me, really, it's about the timing is always important, right? So do you ever, at any point, when do you exit the army? And also, is it a situation whereby you need to have security travel with you? Because like maybe someone from outside the set has seen that there's firearms on set, and maybe they want to borrow your firearm for a lifetime. But then, like, how do you transport it in, and how do you transport it out? And this goes down to weapons as well, like other weapons.
Okay, so a lot of the guys, when we're transporting a lot, have more than one person.
Yeah.
And most of the guys are armed for
Okay.
transport.
Okay.
And then we don't put big signs on there.
Higher
This
arms
truck
is-
full of guns. This car's got a boot full of guns.
All right.
But yet sometimes funny things do happen. We were doing many years ago, we were short of AKs. And we had one company using them in the day and one on night shoots.
Right.
The only person left to transport it was my wife. So she grabbed them from the day set and was
Yeah.
transporting them and came to a police roadblock. This is about 1989.
Wow.
And they stopped, and the
Jeez.
officer said, "Do you have any firearms?" She says, "Yes." And she'd forgotten the paperwork.
Okay.
She said, "Yes, officer, I have 9 AKs in the car." And he went, "Don't be funny, we're just doing our job now, carry on." And she drove on with 9 AKs in the car.
Happiness. Question.
Morning, my name is Cindy Kumalo. I just want to check, I don't know whether this question is going to go to Bruce or Ian, but in terms of security on set,
Security on set. Yeah.
is there a way that we make sure that, firstly, the security on set have legal guns? Two, how do we make sure that it's properly saved for everyone? The reason I'm asking this, we had a situation on set, I think Ian was talking about it. There was a security. They went to the loo after changing sections, and then the security that coming on night was giving the other one. And then the other one went to the loo, and then he was checking whether this is still having bullets or whatever. And then we had a shot in the VIP toilet, and then it was a big bust. And then this ended up affecting security. This ended up affecting location, because this happened on a certain location. So even on that, I'm a bit worried. And then the same situation you were saying, we ended up finding out that the gun is illegal.
So hold on. The security guards had their own guns, and then they rotated and go into the toilet.
They swapped the guns.
They swapped the gun
Yes.
in the toilet.
No, they swapped it outside the toilet, but one of the security went inside the toilet.
Oh, so he said, "Okay, hold this gun for me," and then he accidentally had swapped them out without realizing.
He went inside. I don't know whether he was testing it or whatever, but there was a shot inside the toilet.
So essentially, what she's saying is that, you know, you go to the toilet, take off your gun, say, "Hold this for me for a moment," and then they'll both want. And then I'll go to the toilet first, and when you come out, I'll hold both guns.
Yeah.
But then one of them went off, which means that they didn't know which gun was which. So I don't know
Yeah.
if Ian, you had a.
Well, I think the original question, Cindy, you were saying, you know, how do you know the security guys are legit, basically?
Yes, because
So-
I'm trying to figure out if this was supposed to be something falling under the safety, because this end up also including production at the same time. Do you get me?
So it comes to one of those 3 safety.
Yeah.
Zanya's question: what are your top 3? One of them was contractor vetting. making sure that you're pulling in the right subcontractor. So when you pull in a security company, you should first of all make sure that they are CIRA registered. They're the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, which is unnecessarily long. But you should be checking that they're CIRA registered. They should be insured for the work that they do. And then the individual guards who are working should all be CIRA registered. I'm a CIRA registered officer. We have a CIRA registration number. You can go and look us up on the website and check that we're registered. Any officer wearing, who's carrying a gun should have a license, and they should be able to present that to you.
Okay.
And then what we would do as well is make them sign an SOP to agree to specific rules that we were talking about. Not bringing the gun onto set, that sort of thing. So we would do all of that. So for the subcontractor vetting, there's a fair amount you can do to make sure you're using a reputable and registered and insured security company.
Okay. And then the last one, if you are having someone coming on set, it's just a private person coming on a set and carrying a gun, how do we work around that to make sure that the set is safe for everyone? Thank you.
Private people come with their own guns.
Come with their own gun.
We have that people who have licensed firearms come to the set, and sometimes on bigger when we have a lockbox that they can put it in, or we ask them to remove the magazine and all ammunition and give it to the armorers who lock it up in a separate place. So we're not taking his gun away from him. I cannot remove a licensed person's gun, but I can stop him from carrying a loaded firearm on the set. You've got your gun, you've got your magazine, your bullets go into a bag, sealed with your name on it and locked into a separate box. We always have that available on the bigger shoots.
No, that's fair.
When we go to studios, just one small point. When choosing an armory company, ask the armory company how much insurance they have. Most of the fly-by-nights don't have insurance. They rely on you to do it.
Okay.
So you can go out and get insurance for X amount of million in case of an accident. The fly-by-night guys can't get insurance.
Okay. So then, we've got only a few minutes left. For me, my takeouts from this are script. It starts at the script, right? And to look at your script, and I think looking at your script...
Identify the risk areas.
Identify risk areas,
risk assessment.
right? And what I'm also picking up is that we need to build regulation in, or just some form of guideline or checklist that we may or may not have, and have that available somewhere. And I think it's probably a call to you guys at Safeguard to just develop a checklist of weapons, ammunition, armory, or dangerous objects on set. And dangerous objects can be anything, really. And also, I'm also picking up is kind of just like this awareness of guns. When I came to Higher Arms and I practiced, it's how to actually handle yourself around a gun, because whether it's shooting live or it's shooting blanks, it's still the same action from a body point of view. So to be able to get the training that you need to be able to manage yourself. What I'm also picking up is that it's safe to have ammunition on set.
Yes.
It's not something to be scared.
Environment.
In controlled environments, right? And it's not a bad thing if you know that your character always has to shoot. If your character is a police character or a gangster character or a woman that has to kind of look after herself and her children and whatever it is, maybe it's a good idea to go to a gun, to a shooting range, and to be able to practice and understand what this thing looks like.
Get some training.
I think I'm learning is that we don't necessarily have real gunpowder.
Yeah.
Right? We have powder, something that comes out, and the rest of that is taken care of in post-production. In terms of what that kind of looks like, whether it's where we enhance the flame action and stuff like that. What I did pick up though when I was doing that little, at least it takes 2 minutes. It's not a massive training process. I kind of my mom knows how to shoot a gun. Well, she's a soldier, so I guess she should. But it's that kind of understanding the sound around it as well, because it is pretty loud, and to prepare yourself mentally to be able to do that. So I don't know if there's any other questions, but you guys work globally. It's not just a situation where
It's
you
not
consult.
making coffee.
You guys work globally, you consult globally. On the continent here, we do have global experts like yourself, Bruce, like yourself, Ian, that consults for global productions that come here, or sometimes you're actually poached for like 6 weeks and you're taken away halfway across the world to do some work. So we do have the skills to be
The
able
skills
to do
do
it.
exist.
You know, it's not just some random kids shooting guns, you know, in certain films. They are taught. There is a process, there are sign-offs, there's acceptance, there's insurance, there's a whole life around weaponry and armory when it comes to set. I don't know if you guys picked that up, but I want to say thank you so much, Bruce. This has been an absolute education for me. I was supposed to go there for like a 20-minute meeting.
You had fun.
2 hours later, I am exploring different uniforms that you have, the different protection elements, and I walked away from Higher Arms thinking, actually, that's okay. That was an education. And to a sense where it was almost like a museum, where I was thinking about taking my kid, but I thought maybe not. I don't want to encourage it. But anyway.
I'll extend the invitation to anybody here that would like to come and see what we do.
Yeah.
And also give them feel a bit better about guns in the movies. Because at the moment there's a lot of panic.
There is panic.
I mean, so anybody who wishes to come and have a cup of coffee is more than welcome. And then we also not only train actors and actresses, we actually detrain them as well.
What does that mean?
Make them useless again.
So don't have to.
Okay. I trained a girl who was a continuity announcer. We worked in Skiathos, Greece. She was an Arab terrorist.
Okay.
And she'd been out and she became this real pro-terrorist. I bumped into her 2 years after that job, and she was a housewife who's scared and somebody was trying to break in. So she goes into the drawer, reaches in, comes into tactical maneuvers, and the director, Omra, can you help here? I said, remember when the first time I gave her a gun, she did this. I said, go back to what you were. So we had to detrain her, because all the training that she had, she just picked the gun up and suddenly went into tactical mode, and she's a scared housewife who's never shot a gun.
Okay, got you.
So that's detraining.
They do train. Ian, thank you so much for your time. Bruce, thank you. And talking about coffee, we're going to take, you can go grab a coffee and come back in, because our next discussion is about digitization in the filmmaking industry, where we are digitally, what advancements we've made in the past year and a half, 2 years. And we're going to have, in our discussion, we're going to have camera discussion, we're going to have a DOP discussion in there as well, and we're also just going to kind of talk about it from a Gen Z point of view as well. Thank you so much, gents.
Thank you.
Thank you.